So, like I said, this is a very much an introduction to forest raised pork. Section one topics covered. Why consider forest raised pork? And if you want to do this on pasture, that's fine too. I do it in the woods for reasons that I'll get into in this webinar. We'll cover the pros and the cons, as I see them at least, in our enterprise, the kind of the financial impact, and then potential earnings on 12 retail hogs, just as a microcosm of what you could expect if you run a dozen pigs. And honestly, it doesn't take that much infrastructure to run a dozen pigs. Frankly, if you've got enough infrastructure to run 3 or 4 pigs, you can probably jump that up to 12 pigs without a whole lot more effort or time or labor. And then that really starts to pay you back on the financial side of things when you amortize your fixed costs and your time over more animals. And then the second half, again, real basic overview. This is a very truncated version of the module that's in the course, but breed selection, acquiring animals, training to electric fence, which can always be interesting to say the least when we're talking about pigs, feed requirements, watering system and equipment we use for each of those, pasture versus forest, health issues that we've dealt with here on our farm, and then some quick loading techniques, which again can always be interesting with pigs. So first, our kind of overview of section one here. Take a real close look at the pros and cons list. We'll cover the production costs to get started. And maybe you're already running a pork enterprise, but this is a really dialed in look at what my costs are on my production. We'll take a look at our retail pricing that we use for our pork at the farmer's market. You'll actually see my entire price list, just like you were to walk up to my table and want to buy stuff. Take a really close examination of my income and expense and profit from a single animal that was about 250 pounds. And we will prove out that you can actually make $10,000 net or more with a small-scaled pastured pork or forest-raised pork enterprise, again, with 12 hogs. Now, while that sounds really easy, getting to a point of high profitability can take some time, so set your expectations accordingly. This really revolves more around getting your customer list built up, getting your brand image out there, things of that nature, and that does take time. It's not like you can just do that overnight. That's something Diego and I have talked about at length, at great length on the podcast and in the course. Like, it just takes a lot of time and effort. Selling retail is a very relational sales marketing technique. You get to know your customers on a first name basis, and that just takes a long time. So here are the pros of doing a forest raised or pastured pork enterprise. Easy animal to manage with proper infrastructure, and note with proper infrastructure is underlined there. If you've got the right tools in place, pigs are pretty daggone easy to manage. But if you don't have the right infrastructure in place, they can be a real headache. I know guys that have gone out and got pigs and tried to run them with one or two loosely put together wires of hot 12.5 gauge fence wire that's kind of just slapped together, and that didn't work out so well for them. But if you've got some decent fence, or even if you use the portable netting product from a company like Premier Fence, they can be pretty easy to manage. Modest initial capital investment, we'll get into that in detail. Relatively low risk animal, especially if you raise it during the warmer months, in terms of health problems, which we'll cover. They can be raised nearly year-round in most climates. And if you've got some experience under your belt, I think it's fine going 12 months out of the year. But if you're just starting out, work with Mother Nature, not against Mother Nature. Do this from like May through October. Your day-to-day maintenance labor really is very, very minimal, and it can be conducted by any adult, and honestly, even a young person that I would say is mature, 12 plus years of age. It's really very simple what has to be done day to day if we're not talking about moving the whole system, moving the animals. This is an extremely profitable animal. Just to kind of give you a little bar here to compare, one pig retail using my prices is equal to roughly 80 chickens retail, and one pig wholesale is equal to roughly 45 chickens retail. Just to kind of give you an idea, you have to raise a whole lot of chickens to equal one pig is the point. One big advantage here is that this is, you know, much closer to and sometimes equivalent with retail costs of pork in a grocery store, especially if that pork carries an organic or a, you know, quote unquote natural label on it. When we're talking about poultry, you know, typically our retail cost is a lot higher than something you see in a grocery store. But when it comes to pork, the American consumer puts such a higher value on pork than they do poultry. You can charge a lot more for it. And frankly, it doesn't cost you much more per pound of product to raise pork than it does chicken. They're actually very, very close, but we can charge a whole lot more for pork and get it much easier. Butchers are typically very easy to find, and you're probably going to have a lot of options when it comes to finding a butcher. And quick side note, there's a free guide you can get out on grassfedlife.co about how to select the right butcher. Things to look for, things to avoid, can save you a lot of headaches there. So make a note of that if you want to check out that guide. Value-added retail products, when it comes to pork, really are limitless. There are tons and tons and tons of options, and this can really add a lot to your bottom line. And, you know, pigs can be marketed very profitably wholesale to either individuals or stores. We have stores that buy our pigs on a wholesale bulk program, and then they retail them in the store, and it works out really well for them. Now, some of the cons: pigs can be very nerve-wracking to work with when they're young, especially when training to electric fence. A loose pig can be a nightmare. I don't mind telling you, I'd rather deal with, like, you know, 5 loose cows than 1 loose pig. Feed costs can pile up over the 5 to 6 months that you're managing the pigs. They do have a much slower ROI than something like a chicken. It can be extremely labor intensive when you're rotating into a new paddock if you're just using portable infrastructure, and particularly if you're doing that in the woods like I've done here. That can be a real pain in the neck moving, you know, portable electric fencing around the woods. It gets hung up on everything. It can take a lot of time. You know, permanent infrastructure is best, but it can be very costly to put in, you know, like high tensile fence or woven wire fence. I'm sure there are ways to do it less expensively than I've done it here, but when it comes to building permanent fence, I build it to last. I build it so I don't ever have to worry about it. I want to sleep well at night. That's always my goal when I build anything that's going to manage an animal. As I mentioned, you know, slower ROI, 5 to 6 month turnaround time, a lot higher learning curve, I think, than poultry in many, many ways. And this is an animal that can injure a human being if you're not careful. I mean, he's got 250, 300 pounds. They come up to your knees or the bottom of your thigh. They can take you out in a heartbeat and hurt you if you're not really paying attention. They're going to require larger equipment. You're going to have to, you know, borrow, rent, purchase a livestock trailer, maybe even have to have access to a small tractor to get that livestock trailer moved around on your farm if you don't have a 4-wheel drive truck. Pigs can catch pneumonia very, very easily. I say mostly in the colder months, but honestly, I've had this happen in the summer. You know, we're noticing trends here where it's cooler, even in the summer, and you get some big temperature swings, and pneumonia can really set in very easily. And a pig can drop dead without much notice if they catch pneumonia and you don't pick up on it. They can be extremely difficult to load into a livestock trailer. Anybody that's ever listened to the podcast has probably heard me talk about spending, you know, 12 hours trying to get 8 pigs in the livestock trailer. That's no longer the case. You'll see my little loading corral apparatus later on in this presentation. I'll explain how easy that can be, but it can be really difficult. So here is a look at, you know, working on setting up our retail prices. You know, first we've got to understand what we've got into one of our pigs. And this is my actual cost analysis from 2017. And kind of on the left side there, I've got all my expenses listed. I throw in just a flat amount for fuel to go pick up pigs, to, you know, haul them to the butcher. I'm usually doing no less than 8, 10, 12 pigs at a time now going to the butcher, or, you know, when I'm picking up feeder pigs or something. So $25 is probably more than enough. I have paid up to $140 for feeder pigs. Sometimes, you know, I've been stuck buying certified organic feeder pigs, and they were $2 a pound when they were, you know, 70-pound pigs. I don't always pay that much, but I've just left that in there so that I've got a little extra padding in my expense column. And then I've got listed there the dollars per ton for the feed that we're using. You see the 0.15 and the 0.25. That 0.15 tons, that's a higher protein ration for the pigs when they're smaller. That's why it costs more per ton. And then the 0.25, the quarter tons per feed, that's, you know, when the protein steps down. So we've got, you know, $57 and $80 basically listed there. And so if you follow that down, we've got about $300 per pig. Now, what you see on the bottom half of this slide is if we are selling in bulk. Everything I do on my farm, I'm always trying to hit a wage per hour of about $50 on something where I am selling it wholesale. So this is from a wholesale perspective. So we sell our, you know, our whole pigs, we sell at $3.35 a pound live weight. And if it's a 250-pound animal, which is what we shoot for, that's what we market around. And they will get bigger than that. But, you know, the live weight cost on that animal to the customer is $837.50. Our profit is a little over $500. Now, you're probably wondering, you know, do I have a hard time getting somebody to buy a pig that's $840? And they haven't paid for processing yet. That doesn't include processing. But I don't enter into that conversation from the standpoint of, hey, do you want to spend, you know, $1,000 on a whole pig? I back into it by saying, would you like to buy, you know, a forest-raised pig that tastes great, had a really nice life, got to eat, you know, grass and nuts and all these different things, was fed non-GMO grain, have it custom cut to your specifications, vacuum sealed in a nice, clean, state-inspected facility for less than $7 a pound? Because you can't buy crappy pork in a supermarket for less than $7 a pound. I mean, you have to try to find it. And most people are shaking their head yes. So that's how I enter into that conversation. Just to give you an idea, we don't ever want to throw out the $1,000 number. We want to tell them what the package cost is per pound to them at the end of the day in the freezer for usable product. Then what you see down below that is if they're buying a half pig, we do charge a little bit more. It's $3.55 a pound. We make a little bit more money per hour. Over on the right-hand side, you see the customer cost and yield. I use 0.6 for a 250-pound animal. There's about 60% of the animal is going to end up getting packaged. That could be a little high or a little low depending on the animal, but it's a pretty good number to stick with day in and day out to get you really close. What this means is that they're going to get 150 pounds of meat, processing roughly $200, and that puts their cost at just under that $7 a pound I just talked about. You see that $6.91 a pound for the customer. On the half pig, it's a little bit more. You follow the numbers down, it's $7.25 a pound. But that's how I look at things, you know, setting my prices for bulk customers. Now, this is a look at our actual retail prices if we're selling stuff, you know, a la carte by the cut at the farmer's market. Our stuff tops out at $13 a pound for our boneless loin and our bacons. We charge $13 a pound. Our chops, $10.99 a pound. That's stretching a little bit, but we still get it most days. Shoulder roast, $9. One reason I charge $9 for shoulder roast is I can turn that into a bratwurst and sell it all day long. So what, you know, I don't want to cut myself short. So we just keep the nicer portion of the roast, the Boston butt, to sell the shoulders. We sell those frequently at $9 a pound. See our bacon and ribs there. We do really discount the spare ribs because there's not a whole lot of meat on those. There's more bone and they're fattier. So those are, for us, a cheap cut at $6. The baby backs, those things fly out of the cooler at $9 a pound. All of our brats are $10. All of our packaged sausages are $8. And we even sell the pork marrow bones for $3.99 a pound. We actually have people that love to buy those. So this is what you'd actually see if you walked up to my booth at the farmer's market. And now what I want to show you is kind of like, you know, how we arrive at these numbers. This was actually, I said 250. This is actually a 240-pound animal I had a couple of years back. And we occasionally will go through and do this. So we've got some data. I don't do this on every animal, but you definitely have to do this at the beginning to track things, to get your own spreadsheet set up. But I actually wrote down everything we got out of this girl. And you can see there we got 24 pounds of brats at, call it $10. See the value, $240 worth of brats. almost 20 pounds of bacon, that's $250. Our spare ribs, $32. Sausage, baby back ribs, shoulder roast chops, boneless rib end. That's our boneless loin. It's got the rib end and a little bit of tenderloin on it. We get $13 for that. And if you total all that up, all the way across, the retail value of that pig is actually $1,346.99. Call it $1,350. Now, up at the top, you see, about how much we've got in this pig. It costs us about $1.25 a pound to raise this animal using those numbers I showed you on that previous spreadsheet. So we've got our hog cost at $300. Now, if I'm selling this animal retail or wholesale, doesn't really matter. I've got $300 into it. But when I go the retail route, now I've got to carry the cost of the butchering fee, so I throw $200 in there for that. We spend a lot of money on brats and, getting our all natural smoked bacon. That's quite a bit more than the other smoke option, which has the MSG and stuff in it. We definitely have a very natural bent to our products, which allows us to charge a nicer premium. We actually got 140 pounds back out of this girl, assuming she cost us about $500 to get back from the butcher. When it's all said and done, we've got a price per pound of about $3.57. And you see the percent of live weight there, that is in reference to, 0.58, that 58%, that's the percentage of her live weight, that 240 that we actually got back. So again, if we follow this down, you see we got almost 140 pounds of product to sell. We've got our value, that $1,347 minus 500. We've got an added profit of almost $850 on this animal. And if you take that times 12 pigs, you break $10,000. And I've had people tell me, well, that's impossible. You can't get those kind of prices for pork. Well, I just do it, every Saturday all year long, and I've been doing it for over 10 years. So, I guess I'm doing something right. It really is possible. But again, it does take time to get your customer list built up to a point where you can go out and move 12 retail pigs. Early on, you might only be able to sell, 12 retail pigs over the course of a year. We get into the summer now doing 2 good farmers markets on Saturdays. We're moving a retail pig a week. If I'm not butchering 4 or 5 pigs a month for retail purposes, we run out of product. And that doesn't take into account people, placing orders online for delivery, picking up stuff at the farm, restaurants we work with, things of that nature. So we've really got this thing going now, and pigs have been the profit center for our farm, really. I mean, chicken, yes, we make money on chicken. Beef, we make money on beef. But the pigs really for us have been the sweet spot. And they've been a huge blessing for our farm financially, as you can see by this spreadsheet. Now we're kind of shifting gears a little bit and getting into the how-to, the nuts and bolts side of this presentation. And this is a question I get a lot. What breed of pig do I need to start with? And I think as farmers, we don't do this so much on chickens unless we're talking about egg layers. But we do this a lot with pigs, and we do it a whole lot with cattle. What's the best breed for my farm? We get all fascinated by all the information out there on all the different, breed websites. And, every breed website has one job. It's to make their breed sound like the ultimate breed that you could ever have on your farm. It's a marketing thing. I'm here to tell you, with pigs, it's just not that important. If we're talking about cows, it's really important. But with pigs, it's not that important unless you have some kind of a niche market you're going after, whether that be charcuterie, high-end restaurants, something like that. Any pig works. If it's got 4 legs and a tail and a heartbeat, it qualifies. There's a whole blog article on this that you can read in depth if you'd like to, out on the Grassfed Life website. Everything on that website is free. Diego referenced the podcasts that are out there. We did early on I want to say it was like episodes 6, 7, and 8, where we went through pork as detailed as we possibly could. And really nothing on our farm has changed since we did those podcasts a couple of years ago. But anyway, check out that blog article about What kind of pig should you buy? Again, 4 legs, a tail, and a heartbeat. It's in the conversation. Just want to be healthy pigs coming from a good farm. Now, here's a kind of a list of specific breeds to consider. These are what I tell you you're probably going to be more apt to find. You got the blue butts like you just saw on that previous page. That's a cross. Those are wonderful pigs. They really get knocked in the regenerative ag or permaculture circles because they're a white pig and they were bred for barns. They are wonderful pigs. Generally speaking, they are some of the easier going pigs in terms of their attitudes and how they interact with us humans that I've run across. So I would not be afraid of those at all. In fact, if you've never raised pigs before, I would tell you earnestly to put those at the top of your list. Berkshires, Hampshires, Durocs, Tamworths, Old Spots, those are all great breeds. Any crosses inside of those breeds are good. I've had some Berkshire Duroc crosses. Those pigs rock. They are awesome. They finish out really, really well. They're fairly docile, pretty easy to handle. Great pigs up into the 275, 300 pound range. I've had Tamworths also, purebred, a little nuts, a little psychotic, didn't really care for them. Was the best tasting pork I ever raised, but we had to get them a lot larger. They needed to be up into that 320 pound range to really get filled out. Now down at the bottom, I've got some things listed here. Large blacks, that's on the bigger end of the spectrum. And then on the smaller end, the American Guinea or the Kuni. I would, in my experience, tell you to stay away from these breeds. I know some guys that have made money with large blacks, but I had a buddy of mine I used to sell with at farmers markets years ago, and he was all the time sending me his customers to buy our pork. And I mean, Jonathan is like the most direct competitor I've ever had. Our farms are so similar. I had no issue sending my customers to him. He had no issue sending his customers to me because our morals were aligned. We raised our animals in such a similar fashion in standards that were so much greater than any other farm that we were just so interchangeable. It was insane. But he would always send me his customers to buy pork. And finally, one day I asked him, like, Jonathan, why are you always out of pork? Like this, it doesn't make any sense to me. Pigs are so easy to raise. They're so easy to put weight on. And he said, well, we got these large blacks, and we're farrowing on farm. And I said, I know you're farrowing on farm, but what's the deal? And he goes, they take 10 to 11 months to finish. He said, we've got to get these things up to 350 pounds, and they just grow slower. So his cycle was like 10 and a half months, whereas my cycle, if I'm going out and getting a weaned piglet, is like 5 months. I mean, I was cutting his time in half. And I wasn't running out of pork, and he was, and that was a big deal. On the smaller end of the spectrum, there's, I'm sure, somewhere a model that works for one of these two pigs. I've yet to see it. I've talked with lots and lots of people who have spent a lot of money on these kinds of pigs. I think they're a neat homestead pig. I think they could be a really cool charcuterie pig, or if you could get into some kind of like high-end niche restaurant groove with your marketing campaign, they could work well for that. But I've yet to see these pigs be demonstrated like I'm demonstrating to you in this presentation that you can go out and make really good money on. The only people I know that have made great money on these breeds were the people selling very expensive breeding stock. So that's my 2 cents on those breeds. I get that question a lot, and basically that's my knowledge base on it. I've never attempted to raise large blacks, American Guineas, or Kunis, and I don't ever intend to. Now, acquiring piglets, 3 main ways: livestock auction, another local farm, or farrow on your own farm. As with anything in life, there are pros and cons with each method. I fortunately have never had to go to a livestock auction to buy a pig or a cow, and I don't ever intend to. I don't want to, because I can't see the farm that animal came from. I can't ask the farmer who raised that animal any questions, like, what did you shoot them up with? What were you feeding them? What were their living conditions like? What are your grow out weights at what age? I can't ask any of these questions. I don't like that. I have dabbled with farrowing on my own farm. It is possible to do it. I don't think this is something you should do early. I think this is definitely something you wait to do until you're a lot more experienced with raising pigs. I will tell you, in my opinion, I think you really have to make an investment into a facility to do this. Pigs have got to be warm and dry, or that pneumonia I talked about earlier really kicks in, I just don't have the facilities here to farrow, and frankly, I don't want to farrow. That's just not what makes me tick. It is a way to potentially add profitability, but I tell you, it's very expensive to keep sows in a boar around and feed them 365 days a year. So you've got to get to a point of scale for that to make sense. That's something you got to pencil out on a spreadsheet. And if you get to a point where you could, keep maybe 10, 12 sows and you're breeding them twice a year, I think you're getting to a point where it might make sense, but you're going to have a pork operation that's probably bigger than mine. I'm running 70, 75 pigs a year. I can't justify farrowing. It just doesn't pencil out. Not when I can go buy feeder pigs for as low as $50 in certain instances off Craigslist because people price them so cheaply. So what method I've used is I've just always purchased them from another local farm. Look, I'm fortunate. I've got a couple of great sources within like 50 miles where I can make a phone call and say, hey, can I come get, 24 80-pound pigs at the end of next month? And it's not a problem. The main farm I use, they're certified organic. I know the guy well. I know what his standards are. I know how he does things. I'm comfortable with it all. It's just a very easy relationship, and that's what I've always done. So, you might have to travel a little bit further. That's a negative, but I think the pros outweigh the cons there. Now, when it comes to training pigs to electric fence, okay, if at all possible, you want a 2-is-1, 1-is-none system here. And what I mean by that is you want to create some kind of a physical barrier. Now, that could be in a building. It could be using hog panels and T-posts, or it could be like my training corral, which you can see there in the background. You'll see a close-up of it here in just a moment, where we can then place this electric portable netting, or if you want to use reels, I know guys that use reels, you want to be able to put that inside of a physical barrier. That way, when the pigs get shocked and when one of them blows through your electrical barrier, they're still contained within the physical barrier that is the barn, the corral, the hog panels, whatever it is, so that you can, get them rounded up and put them back inside the electric fence. And usually after they get shocked, a couple of times, they're done messing with it. They learn pretty fast. They're very intelligent animals. At most, they might get shocked 4 or 5 times within a couple of hours, and that's pretty much it. They'll test it every once in a while after that to make sure it's still on. But by and large, they're done. But it can be pretty nerve-wracking for them and for us. If you're using the portable electric netting from Premier, you want your pigs to be at least 40 to 50 pounds in size before you try to train them. They will squirt through that. Honestly, I'd tell you if they were 60 or 70 pounds, that would be better. Again, there's a free blog article out on the website, grassfedlife.co, where you can read all about training pigs to electric fence. There's a lot of do's and don'ts there, a lot of step-by-step process that's been written to help you out if you've never done that. I would encourage you to read that. Even if you have done it, you would probably learn some things that would make life easier on you and the pigs. Now, after a few days, you can take the portable fence down, and then what I'm doing is I'm actually training the pigs to electric high tensile fence, which is my permanent fence that we've got in our wooded paddocks, so that they're used to it. They know that, oh, yeah, that's hot too. That also hurts. We give them a few days to get trained to this, again, in this training corral area, and then we'll move them into one of our wooded paddocks out in the forest and let them start really rummaging around out there as they want to. Again, this is that 2-is-1, 1-is-none system. This has worked really, really well for me. You can see there my corral wires, they're pretty tight. Those things are only about 3 inches apart down low. And that's because I don't want the pigs being able to squeeze through them. And we've actually even gone back since this photograph was taken and put in some light duty Pasture Pro fence posts now they're on 6-foot intervals to even make this tighter, to make the wires more taut, so that we can now, if we want to, if we need to, we can actually just drop pigs right into that corral and train them straight to the high tensile wire. It would be near impossible for them to spread those wires, which are 3 inches apart, with a vertical support post every 6 feet, wide enough that they could escape and get out. Now, getting into kind of some of the equipment, this is one of our big feeders that we use. You can use rubber tubs if you want to. That's what we did early on. But if you look around, you can probably find an old bulk feeder pretty cheap. I will tell you that since I've started doing this, raising pork this way has gotten a lot more popular. These feeders, at least in my area, they're becoming harder to find, at least used and reasonable. If I can score one now, I bought one this week for $250. I felt like I smacked a home run. Used to you could get them for $50 to $100, but that's, at least for me, not the case anymore. These are definitely worthwhile. They save a lot of feed. The thing I like about it, particularly if you have an off-farm job, this is something you can fill this dude up on Saturday or Sunday, whatever your off day is when you got time. I talked earlier about, the day-to-day maintenance is pretty easy. This is one of the bigger tasks, but you can fill this thing up. This thing will hold like 1,500 pounds of feed. You don't have to worry about it all week. Then you're just looking in on them, checking on them, making sure everybody's there. It makes it really easy, Monday through Friday if you're leaving the farm to go to an off-farm job. And what we've done here is we took some beveled 4x4s and made skids with some cross members. If you look closely on the left, just below the feeder, you can see an eye bolt there. We can actually then take a little hook and cable that we fabricated and drag this thing around if we need to. But when it's empty, two adults definitely. Sometimes by myself, you can tip this thing over on its side and roll it into the next paddock to get it moved. And depending on the age of the pigs, one thing I want to mention, you got to be very careful with your protein. This is why it's very important to know how big your pigs are. If you go to pick them up, you want to weigh empty, weigh loaded between picking them up and getting them back to your farm, so you've got an average weight per animal, because you need to know precisely what protein ration to get made for your pigs. If they're little itty bitty guys that were just weaned, it could be 21, 22%. If they're finishing pigs, for me, using my program, that drops down to like 15, 14.5% protein. Too much protein for pigs is really bad. It will give them the runs in a bad way. So you really want to try and have your protein spot on as best you can. So weigh them when you pick them up, and weigh empty with that same truck and trailer. Do the math, get a really close average. If you don't want to have your feed made ahead of time, you just have some shell corn or something like that to feed them for a day or two till you can get your feed milled. But definitely get the right protein made. Most likely, if you're adding any kind of a NutriBalancer, mineral balancer, the company that's selling you that product, they are going to have some pretty stringent guidelines that your mill needs to follow in terms of what percentage needs mixed into that mineral balancer to really help your animals excel. So I would tell you to follow that closely, just like you always want to follow a recipe if you're baking something. The same goes if you're using a mineral balancer for a pig ration or for a poultry ration. Follow the directions precisely as best you can. Make sure your mill that's mixing this up for you understands exactly what it is they're supposed to do. Now, I've got listed here kind of a rule of thumb for pigs on pasture, and this is definitely on the conservative side. You need about 3.5 pounds of grain to get 1 pound of gain live weight. You can lower that. There are ways to lower that. If you have nut-producing trees, particularly acorns, you can slaughter that number, but that's only for a small portion of the year. There'd be nothing wrong with when you're doing your estimating to say 3 pounds of grain to 1 pound of gain, but anything better than that, I think you're probably you've got some lofty goals there that are probably going to bite you in the backside on the back end of your spreadsheet when you go to do the math at the end of the day, and you actually figure out how many pounds of grain you fed versus what you thought you were going to use. So I wouldn't go anything lower than 3. You can do some things. You can plant some stuff for them. They'll graze pretty well. If you're doing more of a pastured operation, there's definitely more grass for them to eat, which which can help lower that number. But as you'll see here in a minute, like I think there are some huge negatives with pastured pork operations. I don't fault anyone for doing it. I just prefer the forest, and we'll kind of cover that here in just a minute. Now here's our watering station. This is what I call my piggy drinking deck, and that's very simply is just a 3 foot by 3 foot treated lumber deck down there. It's made out of 2x4s and 5/4 deck board, so that the pigs don't make a great big huge wallow right around that. There's a picture in the online course that you see what it looks like if you don't have one of those drinking decks. The short version is just build one and use it. It's just a really simple T-post, nipple drinker, and a washing machine hose that's connected to a pressurized garden hose, routed over the pig's heads, routed up high. Pigs are smart. Once one of them figures this out, the rest of them figure it out within a day or so. You can always put a bucket of water out there for them to drink from, put it next to or on the drinking deck so they learn where the water's at. But again, once one of these guys figures it out, everybody's going to have it down in a couple of days. And pigs are super versatile. We've done them on pasture. We've done them in the woods both. This is kind of a quasi pasture / forested area that I have used in the past. We're actually going to be converting this into more of a cattle grazing area this summer. But pigs can thrive in either situation. Now, as I mentioned earlier, pastured applications give the pigs, a lot more access to green material, and that can cut your grain inputs. And if that's your goal, that's fine. But a big deal out on pasture, lack of shade can lead to sunburn. I've seen a lot of heavy rooting, which destroys the forages if you don't rotate them all the time. And let's be real for a minute. Most of us, particularly when we're first starting out, and maybe even if our holistic context says, I'm just going to be a part-time farmer, we're going to an off-farm job. We can't rotate pigs every day or every other day. We're setting up a week-long paddock on Saturday and rotating our pigs once a week and leaving them out on these forages like they are going to root. God made pigs with a built-in plow and 4-wheel drive, and these dudes use both. They will plow up pasture like you have not seen because there's something in the soil they want. They find bugs. There's something that's mineral rich. They want to eat it. They will dig a hole that is knee deep in a few hours if they find something they want. And this can not only destroy the forages, this can create a real problem for cattle or sheep or even people, where holes are big enough that somebody can injure or break a leg. Or I've seen holes big enough that it'd break an axle on a tractor. No joke. So be careful. Make sure that if you want to go the pastured route, that you or business partner, spouse, whatever, somebody's going to be around to rotate these guys a lot more frequently than you think initially that they're going to need rotated. Or optionally, and this will come off as a little bit of a heresy in a regen ag circle, ring their noses to keep them from rooting so much and destroying everything. I've been to Mark Shepard's place. I've gotten the up-close, personal, one-on-one tour. Mark had his pigs' noses had rings in them so they wouldn't destroy his trees, and so they wouldn't tear up all the soil out there. I don't think it's a terrible thing to consider doing that, at least if you're going to have a pastured only application. Now, if they're out in the woods and they tear something up, who cares? It's the woods, nothing else is in there. But if we're talking about pristine pasture, and if we've got other enterprises that we're running, if we've got a pasture poultry enterprise or lamb or cattle, that can be a really big deal. Now, a forest application like I'm using today, while it offers less grazing, it gives them an ample amount of natural shade. And there is seasonal foraging opportunities that exist. Again, we've got a lot of nut trees. We've got a lot of oak trees. We've also got a lot of hickory trees. They eat the hickory nuts okay. They eat the acorns like crack cocaine. Walnuts they don't touch. They'll pick them up and play with them. They do not eat walnuts. Very, very rarely do they eat walnuts. They'll more again, play with it, chew on it, sharpen their teeth. That's about it. But this is their natural habitat. And what I have found is that my pigs perform better in the woods from a bottom line standpoint. Like, they gain weight better because they're cooler. If they're hot, all they want to do is cool off. They don't eat. If they're not eating, they're not gaining weight. So I really prefer the pasture or the forest application to the pasture application for that reason. I don't have to build wallows out in open grazing lands because the pigs have to cool off in a wallow. Like, they have to have a wallow. It's not an option. If you're going to do pigs, they have to have a wallow. In the woods, they build their own. It catches rainwater, and you get this. You get the piggy spa day, okay? And this is a great big wallow they made in the woods, and, like, I don't care. Yeah, they made a big hole. They made a big mess. They have to have it. It's okay. Nothing else goes in there. People don't go into this. Cows don't go into this. It doesn't really matter. So they've got to have the ability to go in there and cool off in the hot months. And, you know, the forest really helps to mitigate how much of a wallow they're going to need, but they still got to have it. They still got to be able to cool off. So, you know, again, if they're cooler, they're going to eat more, and they're going to gain weight, and your production it's going to increase. So, you know, in my book, you know, this is one huge advantage of doing this in the woods versus pasture is the wallow. Now, here's some health concerns we have faced on our farm, and by and large, we've only had these three. I mean, we've had some one-off issues here and there, but by and large, these are the only three we've had, and the first one is the big one. This has been 85-90% of our health problems, pneumonia. It can set in fast, and even in extremely healthy animals, it can be fatal, and it can be fatal really quick. You know, used to, I would have told you after, you know, 4 to 7 days of coughing and feeling bad, you administer an antibiotic. And yes, I just said antibiotic. I'll explain that further here in a minute. Now I would say 1 to 3 days. And honestly, 3 days is pushing it. If their ears are down, if they're panting, if you can tell they don't feel well, if they're just kind of moping around, not eating vigorously, not drinking vigorously, not playing with their buddies, you need to keep a really close eye on them. And I'd say post 24 hours, if particularly that panting is the same or worse, you need to administer a low-level over-the-counter antibiotic, something like an LA200, LA300, which is an oxytetracycline, to get that cleared up. Early on, I was hardcore, pound my fist on the table. I will not ever administer an antibiotic. I don't believe in it. I am not a touchy-feely, empathetic person. It's just not how I'm wired. But I will tell you that after I watched my second pig die a very slow, painful death that lasted, you know, almost a week, I had a paradigm shift. And now my rule of thumb is we do not broad spectrum treat any animals for anything, but if a pig or a cow has an acute case of something, we will treat that animal for that issue immediately. Because you can typically get away with using something, again, that's over the counter, you know, pretty low dose, pretty benign. And if you do it quick enough, you can get them, you know, turned around and pointed the right direction. But if you wait, you know, very long, you're going to have to call a vet and bring out the big guns and use some stuff that's, you know, it doesn't have a 7-day or a 28-day withdrawal period, meaning you can't butcher 7 days after administering it or 28 days after administering it. You have to wait longer than that. You might get a withdrawal period of like 60 plus days. And those stronger antibiotics will actually ruin the meat into whatever area they get put into. So keep that in mind. I'd say learn from those who have gone before you. Don't have a hardcore, you know, I'll never use a drug ever for any reason mentality. Just have a reactive mentality when using drugs. Rear legs, we've actually had quite a few pigs. Pigs are fast and agile. I compare them to like little fullbacks. Yeah, they're fat and stocky, but they're really quick, and they can really, really run around fast and cut on a dime. And we've had several of them, they'll like, pull a muscle in their rear leg and kind of come up lame. This typically isn't fatal, but they need some time to recover. So normally what we'll do is we'll take that pig, and you always want to give a pig a buddy. They do not like to be alone. They have a very strong herd mentality. That's why they sleep in piles. We'll take, one or two other pigs, segregate them with the hurt pig into an area, give them ample feed and water, and just give the guy that gets hurt, a week, maybe up to 3 weeks to, get that rear leg fixed where he can get up and walk around and move okay and, get up to the feeder and eat and not get shoved out of the way. I've seen that over the years, and gosh, probably like once a year we'll have that happen. And then we've had a couple of instances where they were drinking from stagnant water, which, you can't police them and monitor them 24 hours a day. It's going to happen. But we've had, I think, at least 2 pigs that just dropped dead from drinking stagnant water, and they got a gut infection and it killed them. And it's a little bit of a unique thing, but it's, I think, bears mentioning because I've seen it more than one time. Now, thinking about kind of, how long it's going to take to raise pigs and, how much time you're going to need to get them done. They can easily be finished in the warm months of the year, no matter where you live. And what this really means is that if we're talking about in most regions of the country, May through October, it's pretty easy to raise pigs and not be overly concerned with having to have shelters in place for them in terms of bad weather. If they've got some evergreen trees like you see here, I said they sleep in a pile. They just sleep in a big group. This is under an eastern red cedar tree. I love eastern red cedar trees. They are great natural shelters for pigs and cows. You really don't have to have anything built for them. I mean, if you want to, you can. And if you're going to have them before May or after October, at least in my region, you about have to. But you don't have to build anything for them if you've got ample trees for them to get under. A 50-pound, 60-pound piglet is going to gain on average about 50 to 60 pounds per month, or roughly 2 pounds a day, maybe a little bit less, 1.5 pounds a day to 2 pounds a day, and reach a butchering weight of 250 to 300 pounds in 4 to 5 months. This gives you some timelines to start thinking about in terms of butchering, which we'll get to in a minute. Pigs are super efficient weight gainers, up to about 300 pounds. That number I threw at you earlier, that 3 pounds of grain to 1 pound of gain, that is super solid, up to about 275 to 300. You get over 300 pounds and you've gone over the hump on the bell curve and you start losing efficiency. So that's why we want to butcher all of our pigs on our farm between 250 and 300. That's what I'm shooting for. Sometimes we'll get one that's a little bit bigger, maybe up to 325. You get some overachievers, or maybe your butchering date was off a little bit. That's not the end of the world. You don't want to be taking in 400-pound pigs if we're talking about a blue butt or a Berkshire Duroc, something like that. Now, when it's time to load your pigs, some simple tips here for you. Set your livestock trailer up ahead of time and start feeding them out of the livestock trailer. After 2 or 3 days, they're going to fall you in there. They'll think it's their idea to go into the livestock trailer. And what you're seeing here is one of my 12-foot by 12-foot loading corrals. We've actually got like a 13-minute video in the online course where my wife and I demonstrate loading pigs in less than 30 seconds. And it's there's more to it than what I'm giving you here, but the point is making them think it's their idea. Auto-loading pigs are the bomb. When it's their idea to get into the livestock trailer and you can't get out of the way fast enough, you've done your job well. And so we've invested some money in these little loading corrals like you see here. But, look, if you don't have a loading corral, you got to, crawl before you walk and walk before you run. Again, you can use hog panels and T-posts. The point is you want to get them into a fixed small area that you can back your livestock trailer up to so that you can, if need be, forcibly move them into the livestock trailer without worry of them breaking out of it. That's the big point here. But if you set this up even a week in advance and start feeding them out of the livestock trailer, like eventually their stomachs are going to overcome the fear they have of getting into that livestock trailer, and they're going to go in and start eating, and that makes loading super easy and not stressful for anybody. One thing I want to point out here, and it's something I've talked a lot about on the podcast with Diego, is that butchers, they get busy in September, October, even November. So call ahead, reserve a spot. If you follow the information I've just given you in this webinar, you pick your pigs up, you weigh them, you weigh empty, you know what they weigh, you know what your average is. You say, okay, they're going to add 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds per day per month. I can kind of forecast out, okay, I want to shoot for 300 pounds. So this is what I'm shooting for. I circle this date on the calendar. Now I've read the guide that I downloaded for free off the website. I've selected my butcher ahead of time. I call them. I work 2 weeks forward, 2 weeks backward off my ideal date. I get a date. I get that locked down. I'm golden. Do not wait till like August or Labor Day weekend to call a butcher and hope to get a spot in September or October. They'll probably laugh at you. My butcher, if you did that, they'd probably tell you February was your next available option. And I know guys that have taken in pigs that were 450 pounds and they lost their shirt because they had to keep feeding them. So again, call ahead to reserve a spot. And that is basically the end of this intro to forest-raised pork presentation. If you want to learn more, if you're not already familiar with the website, again, grassfedlife.co. Everything on that website is free. It will always be free. We've just put a whole lot of resources out there. There's the free weekly podcast. We've got free blog articles. Along with that, you can also follow the Facebook page. We post things out there. We'll put a copy of this webinar out there, for instance, articles that are of interest, learning opportunities. Again, follow that if you'd like. If you're interested, I mentioned the online course. You can check that out. It's called Farm Business Essentials. It's at farmbusinessessentials.com. It is dense. It is thick. We are continually adding to it. There's not a week that goes by that Diego and I don't have a conversation that goes something like, what would be cool to add would be this. And we commit to adding additional resources that are just getting funneled into that course at no extra cost. We're just increasing the value of it literally on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. The course has complete equipment lists, field videos, and instructions showing you how to do this from start to finish. And again, in-depth marketing to, net earn potentially up to 10 grand on 12 hogs. There's a whole module. And frankly, I think it's one of my best modules that's out there that's dedicated to setting prices and selecting retail cuts on beef, chicken, and pork. All three of them. Even if you're doing just pigs, like that module is so key to making sure that you understand how to value your time and get the most possible amount out of these retail cuts. I also go through 10 different proven methods that we use to this day on my farm to sell products. Like there is no theory in that. It is proven strategies we use. Will your strategies look exactly like mine? No, but it gives you a very good starting point. It gives you a lot of things to think about in terms of setting up marketing. There's spreadsheets showing you how to charge what you need to for your products. You get direct access to myself via the Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group, and it is active and it is good. Like I'm rarely the first person to respond to a question that somebody posts out there. It's just a really great group of people, and it's growing. I'm really proud of that Facebook group. There's a lot of good people out there. So again, you can learn more. You can check out the 23 modules and everything that's included, but it is A to Z. It encompasses everything from marketing to animal management, anything in between. So that is all I have, and I'll turn this back over to Diego at this point.
One thing I wanted to show here, as Darby alluded to some of the content that's out there, an easy way to see a lot of the content of what's in all the modules is just to go right here at the top of the page, see sample course content. If you click on this link, it's going to take you to a page that will bring up the course itself. And within that, there'll be a lot of free preview modules here. So this page will basically outline some of the videos, but if you want to see in-depth inside the modules, click on this link right here, which pulls you inside the course itself, and you can get a quick look. I'm logged in, so it's not showing it, but some of these modules would show a little pill shape button called preview, and you can watch all those for free. And we tried to make the preview sections like good sections, not just actual where nothing's being said. You can scroll through all these. We're continuing to add modules into the course. If you do register for the course, subscribe to the course, you get lifetime access to it. And this is what it would look like inside when you get in there. We're looking to add modules, as Darby said. I'm starting to now populate the course with my modules. This is the first one that I put up. It gets into forming and organizing your farm business. The last webinar that I did really was a subset of this module itself. And then one thing we have in here a lot of are on-farm videos, where I went out to Darby's farm, I shadowed him, I took video of stuff as he was doing it. None of this is staged. This is how he's actually doing it. So you can see him load pigs for real. You can see his pigs out in the woods interacting. We tried to put a lot in here, and like anything that we try and do, if you have questions when you're in here, or there's content that you think we didn't cover that we need to cover, we're happy to add that. So be sure to check it out, farmbusinessessentials.com, and as Darby mentioned, grassfedlife.co for all the free content out there, like the podcast and blog posts. So I'll open it up right now to questions. And why don't we actually start, Darby, with one of the questions that came out of one of the emails, where they were talking about forage plants that you could plant.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is absolutely something you can do. I'm still kind of experimenting with stuff I can try and plant in the woods. You can plant some grasses early in the spring in wooded areas, but like they struggle in my region, if you get past like the middle of April and the trees start budding out, it's really difficult to get stuff to grow in the woods. I've got true deciduous forest here. It's got a pretty dense canopy. Without sunlight, I really haven't found a whole lot of things that grow too great in the woods. My training corral area, I do plant stuff in there for them to forage on early in the season. Not a whole lot in the middle of the summer because there's grasses in there. We'll rotate the cows through there. They'll clean up a lot of the grasses. But we have, planted all kinds of stuff: radish, lettuce, turnips. I found out the hard way pigs do not like turnips. And I found out the hard way that muddy pigs in the winter with rotting turnips smells really, really bad. So you're always kind of experimenting. I think in certain situations that can make a lot more sense if you've got more of a savanna setup, where there's a lot more light coming in, and you can experiment with different things to sow. Is it going to cut how much grain you feed? Yes. Is it more regenerative? Yes, absolutely. Is it going to cut the grain to a point of major impact? Maybe. I mean, I haven't realized that yet, but I'm steadfast about putting them in the woods too, particularly in the fall, because I want them eating all those acorns. The acorns, I have had the pigs cut their feed over a 6 to 8 week period by 70% when we had a really heavy mast a couple of years ago, and the weight gain was phenomenal. It was not 50 pounds a month. It was like 75 to 80 pounds in a month that they put on from acorns because they're pure fat. It was amazing. The pork tasted great, and frankly, it kind of saved my neck because my butchering date and my live weight of my pigs didn't really line up 6 weeks out. So there's a question here. Tried finding organic feed. Okay, so on the feed, asking about grinding it yourself. Yes, you can get a grinder mixer. In terms of proper ratios, no, because I'm not a biologist. I'm not an animal scientist. I would say, I don't know what area of the country you live in, but you need to find I use Helfter. That's Helfter, Helfter feeds out of Illinois for their mineral balancer and what's called their DUA product. That's their product that helps the animals absorb the most nutrition possible out of the feed. Or if you want to work with Fertrell or whoever, like, you buy their mineral balancer and you follow their mixing instructions religiously. That's what I would tell you on that. And I would say if you can't find organic, I mean, you could either get individual organic grains or non-GMO based on what your context is. If you're going to go that route, personally, I don't have an issue with soy for an animal feed. But I would tell you that if you could go soy free and replace that with something like sunflower, flax, field peas, whatever, it would give you a very distinct marketing edge, saying that you had soy-free pork. Also live in a high predation area. What is the predator, I guess, is my question. I've got coyotes. We now have bobcats, which are native actually to my area. And the DNR has reinstituted the population, specifically on my farm. Thank you, DNR. Wolf, bear, and lynx. You need a 48-inch tall fence. Yep. And I would make all the wires hot, and I would make it robust. And I'd probably have a livestock guardian dog. They're not going to fend off a bear. Probably not going to fend off a wolf. The cat, probably. You need some pretty robust fence. Yeah. Or maybe even, here, I'm thinking out loud here. This is off the cuff. It might be worthwhile for you to have a sacrificial livestock trailer that you move around with your pigs, and you train them to go into that livestock trailer every night and lock them up. If predation is that big of an issue, that could actually be cheaper than building Fort Knox to keep a bear out. The cost per pound of my feed, my non-GMO grain is roughly 28 cents a pound delivered. So that includes about $250 to get it down here, 3.5, 4 tons at a time on a great big truck from a feed mill that's 50 miles away.
Here's one that somebody emailed in. At what point would you go from bagged feed to bulk feed?
When it makes sense is when you really want to try and be able to use all your feed within 30 days. And that's one of the problems with bagged feed. And again, you crawl before you walk. You want to try and use feed up within 30 days. Once you crack those grains, they start losing nutritional value. So if you can get to a point where you're going through, and when you say bulk feed, like, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have it custom mixed and you go pick it up. That's what I did early on. I really didn't use a whole lot of bagged feed. Even my first season in farming, I was having stuff custom mixed, 1,000 to 2,000 pounds at a time, and then I would just drive to that feed mill and pick it up. I don't like feed that's been in bags and it's been sitting around for God knows how long. Like, the nutritive value just is not as good. So, but in terms of like bulk, like I'm using bulk, like when we're rolling here in the summer, we've got, 500-600 broilers and, 20 pigs on site. Like, that bulk truck brings us 3.5 to 4 tons each of pork and poultry feed. That might last us 5 weeks. So we made the investment, bought a couple of bins and got set up, and it does lower the cost. It's absolutely cheaper to get it in bulk versus in bags. You just have to justify being able to use it fast enough. Yes, that pig was not castrated. Is this something I'm concerned with? Castrate? Yes, it is, especially after that specific pig. Nice catch. Boar taint is real. It makes the meat taste funny. There are very, very, very few things that I will ever draw a line in the sand and say I'm right and everyone else is wrong. This is one of them. Anybody who tells you that boar taint is not real and it won't affect the flavor of the meat is flat out wrong. That pig tasted like garbage. I ended up giving most of it away, and it was a soup kitchen. They were happy to have it, but it tasted funky. People complained. You can get them castrated, and I actually let that guy go because I had another farmer who will remain nameless that's kind of a big name that I know and respect a lot. His book is sitting behind me on this bookshelf. It's in that stack right there. He's wrong. He's wrong. Oh man, my butcher was pissed when I took him down there. He was mad because he wouldn't, he's like, I will not put any of that pig in the smoker because it'll ruin everything else in there. Don't bring any more boars down here. He took him, but he wouldn't do any more. So point is, you can get them castrated after the fact. Give them about 30 to 45 days, 60 to be safe. And that will run its course. It'll get out of their system. I still don't know that I would have anything smoked out of one that was castrated later that was that big, but you could totally go ahead and sell the cuts and it would be fine. Yeah, he was a fine looking pig. Is there a market for pork raised on non-GMO grain? Yes. I think in our region, specifically Indianapolis, when I entered into the retail market space, so I started farming in 2007. I kind of started dabbling in the retail market space at farmers markets in 2009. I really didn't hit it hardcore until 2010 when I started farming full time. There were a lot of other farms farming like I was then, like I am now, but they were all using conventional grain, and that gave us a distinct marketing advantage. Back in 2010, though, I would tell you 9 out of 10 people who walked up to my booth and I'd say non-GMO, they'd be like, what's that? Why should I care? Whereas now, when I say it's non-GMO, they're like, good, because that's all I want. That's all I'm looking for. I don't want any conventional grains. Like, people are much more educated now than they were a few years ago. I think that's region specific, though. And I don't mind telling you, I think a lot of people in the Indianapolis area specifically are like that because of the marketing our farm has done and a couple of other key farms. We've really pushed that over the hump over the last 8-9 years. Do I buy? Yeah, I buy barrows and gilts. I don't 4 legs and a tail. I don't care, but yeah, only barrows. I don't castrate on farm. Yeah, I've castrated on farm. It's not fun. Any concern running pigs and cows together? Well, you've got the formation of a bacon burger, so that's always good. I don't do it because I don't put my cows in the forest and I don't put my pigs on pasture, so I don't do it. I know there are lots of systems out there that do multi-species grazing together where they're running layers and sheep and cows, and there's a lot of holistic stuff that says that's a good idea because, you know, chickens will eat certain insects and pests off of sheep. And a parasite for a cow, if it finds its way into a sheep, it's a dead-end host, and the opposite is also true. So I think, you know, pigs and cows, I think is fine so long as your infrastructure is set up for it. I think you're a fool to not wring their noses at that point because your pasture for your cow, my pasture is like off limits. I almost want to put up a sign up there that says, if you're not a cow, do not get on the pasture. I'm very particular about my pasture because it supports my cows. So I would never let my pigs out there, but to each their own. Heritage pigs only, or do I run conventional bred hogs? Conventional meaning like, I mean, I don't only use heritage pigs. I basically, I guess, define a heritage pig. Some people would only define a large black as a heritage pig of the breeds I had listed there from a larger pig standpoint. They wouldn't call a Burke a heritage pig. You know, I like blue butts, Yorkshire. Oh yeah, I run those, absolutely. In fact, I would tell you, if you're just starting out, that blue butts are probably the best pig you could go buy. They are super easygoing, very nonchalant attitudes, typically pretty friendly. They finish well. They taste great when they're raised in this system. It will smoke the doors off of any pork you can find in a supermarket. You can get them inexpensively on Craigslist. Even if they've been on conventional feed, if you're getting them right at weaning age, I almost say who cares? So for 95% of what they're going to eat, it's non-GMO and or organic. Yeah, no, I'm not racist when it comes to pigs. They got four legs and a tail, and the pigs I get from David, like I got some a couple of weeks ago. There was a Tam in there, Tam cross. There was a Tam Burke cross. There's a Duroc cross. There's some blue butts, and this was all in the same trailer load. And yeah, whatever. I don't care. I'm just not, when it comes to breed on pigs, I'm not super specific. Now cows, the conversation is completely different. It's 180 degrees from this, but on pigs, I really don't care. If you've got one you like, great. I think though this fall, if you're not farrowing and if you want to go buy it direct from another farm, I think breed drops to the bottom of the list pretty fast. Like if you could find somebody farrowing that's feeding organically or non-GMO, and it's what I'd call a normal pig that's going to finish in that 250 to 300 pound range, that's a win. You establish a relationship with that guy and you buy as many pigs as you can. How do you spell the organic stuff? Helfter, Helfter. Yeah, they're located in Illinois. You can also look up, it's ABC Minerals, I think. That's kind of the same company, but Helfter. And for our chickens specifically, like Helfter blew the doors off of Fertrell. And Fertrell is a lot more expensive. So I really like Helfter. Very good, high quality products. And it's something my grain mill carries. They tried to get established with Fertrell. They were told no. They got established with Helfter, and it was a blessing, honestly. Minimum temperature, I'd consider to let 50-pound pigs out in the forest / pasture. Well, if they've got a little piggy house they can get back into that you put straw in and it's up off the ground, meaning you've built on 4x4s or 6x6s, so they have to step up into it and it's bone dry. You put straw bales around the outside of that, and you put hog panels around the straw bales, because if you don't, they'll destroy the straw bales. Here's the quick skinny on pigs. They want to eat or destroy pretty much anything they come into contact with. That's their goal in life: eat or destroy. So point being, you put straw bales around the outside of that house, you put hog panels and T-posts around that to keep them out of the straw bales. I've run pigs 12 months out of the year. Now, it can get a little tedious in the winter, and it's not even so much the winter. The last couple of years, we've had this goofy where it's 20 degrees for a couple of days, and then it's 45 degrees for a couple of days, and it drops down to 10 degrees, and then it's 60 degrees, and that's just kind of Indiana. That's really hard on them. Like if it was just 25 or 30 all the time, it wouldn't be an issue. They can come and go out of that house as they please, is my point. I don't really think it matters at that point. But that up and down temperature swing, when you're seeing 30+ degree swings, that's where pneumonia can set in. And I've had that happen. I had that happen in August of last year. We had overnight lows in the upper 30s, low 40s in August, and had issues with turkeys in the brooder because I didn't have my turkey brooding area as robust as the chicken brooder is, because it's August. It should be hot, but it's been getting cooler. And we had the same issue. We had a pig that got pneumonia in August. Actually, a couple of them. We treated 3 or 4, and 1 or 2 of them died last year. So it's always kind of a gamble. But if they've got a good house, I don't think it matters. If you haven't raised pigs before, work in the sweet spot with Mother Nature. May to October, pretty easy. like you've got a 99% chance of success on the production side if you work in those months.
Here's one, Darby, that came in via the Q&A box. You've piqued some curiosity with your mention of beef breeds, not related to pigs, but just to satisfy that curiosity. What beef breed do you run?
We use, so we've got a couple different things. When we finally bought cow-calf pairs, I had settled on low-line Angus, and that's basically the Australians took a standard Aberdeen Black Angus out of Scotland. They use a Dexter to breed it down. They bred the Dexter back out, and you get a much shorter, stockier Black Angus cow. I still like those cows. They're a little bit small, though, for my taste. If I had it to do over again, I would go by. It's a coin toss between. I would probably go by. It's not a coin toss. I would go by either one of two things. I'd buy standard Black Angus cows and breed them to a smaller framed Hereford bull, or I'd buy Hereford cows and breed them to a low line Black Angus bull. Black Baldies rock. Like the hybrid vigor is just amazing. That's been my experience here. We've had Red Devons, we've had the low line, we've had big Black Angus, Red Angus. We've had some Shorthorns. Stay away from anything that says it's dual purpose. That's a fine homesteading cow. This is not homesteading. This is farm business essentials. Like go make good money so you can support your family information. So anything that's dual purpose, stay away from it. Stay away from any dairy breeds. It needs to be a beef only breed, but it really needs to come from a grass-fed only herd. So you might say, well, Red Angus is my third choice, but within 50 miles of my farm, there's a functionally organic, 100% grass-fed Red Angus herd. Like that's where you're going to go buy cows. You want grass-fed genetics because they really are different. Animals that have been on grain for generations, like they really struggle in a grass-only system if that's the system you're going to employ, and that's what I employ. So, but it's very specific. Yeah. Withdrawal period for LA 200, I think, don't quote me on this, 28 days, I think. But its stuff is super effective if you hit them early. Usually one, maybe 2 doses, and man, it clears them up. Particularly if they're not used to getting antibiotics, it's really effective. And again, that LA 200, that's a brand name for oxytetracycline, which is just a broad spectrum antibiotic for anything respiratory related. And my experience is if you're going to have a health problem with a pig, pneumonia is 95% of all health issues with pigs.
Here's a question Scott asked in the Q&A. Standard feed pricing at his location, I'm assuming, is 22 cents a pound, conventional, or he can go to non-GMO feed for 45 cents a pound.
Wow.
What would you do there?
I'd keep shopping for feed. Man. Whew. I mean, that's 45. I could get certified organic for cheaper than 45 cents a pound here. Where's he at?
Scott, if you want to chime in some more details, just type them into the chat or go back into that Q&A. He doesn't have a list.
I get. So if those are the only two options, I mean, shop around, make some calls. Maybe if you have to source something further away, do it. But if those are your two options, I think it boils down to your holistic context, which is something Diego talks a lot about in the course. Like, that's a very personal thing. And I would never feed conventional grain. I'm just adamantly opposed to it. Like I'd probably, probably shouldn't say this. I'd probably quit farming if I could only feed conventional or, not farm. But that's a very personal thing. So whatever your holistic context is how I would tell you to answer that.
He's in Arkansas, by the way.
Arkansas. Gosh, there's a guy that came to the October in-person workshop for the farm business class last fall. He's in our Facebook group. He's in Arkansas, and he has had the darndest time finding feed, and he is in Arkansas. Like he's, I think, just outside of Little Rock, maybe. And he is racking his brain trying to get moderately priced non-GMO feed. His name's Scott Ottens. He's in a couple of Facebook groups.
That's Scott. That's the same Scott.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, Scott. Yeah, I don't know. Does the organic feed price you out of the market? I don't know, Scott. We kind of talked a little bit about, maybe you get all non-GMO sources. So genetically modified grains is a short list. That's corn, soy, peanuts, I think. I think maybe you try to find a non-GMO protein source, and then you look for wheat, oats, something like that for the energy source, and maybe get somebody to custom mix it for you. I think you're going to have to get a little bit creative. And maybe that means you even get a, pallet of peanuts shipped up out of Texas for the protein, if that's what you want to do. I don't know. And then you got to do the market research and see, like, is organic grain going to just totally price you out of the market where you're trying to sell into? That's a tough one.
And Ron left a comment down in the chat saying how close to Missouri. He buys organic in Missouri for 30.5 cents a pound. So maybe there's something there. There's one other question here. This is from Samuel. Is the difference in pastured forest pork and confinement pork due more to the ability that the hogs have to move around and exercise, or the forages that they have access to, or both?
The short answer is both, but I'd say it's like probably 80-20 or 70-30. It's the forage. That's what gives it the flavor. Pork is unique in that it will taste like whatever it eats. So those pigs that finished heavily on acorns a couple of years ago, like, you could pick up on a nutty flavor in the pork. It wasn't robust or anything, but like it was distinct. Like it was there. Our pork kind of changes throughout the year, like what it tastes like. That's another reason I really don't like to run pigs in the winter if I can keep from it, because it just, like, it doesn't taste bad. It still beats the pants off of, Whole Foods or Walmart. But it's not as good as the stuff we raise in the summer, and particularly in the fall. So it's both, but it's mostly the forage. My thoughts on debt and cash flowing farm operations. I think you need to do it with cash early on. So if you said, I want to go raise 6 pigs, I think you set up a business only account. I think first you go back and watch the last webinar we did with Diego, where he talks about forming a business. That's really good stuff. I just finished doing the final proof on the module that got put into the course. I've been in business 12 years, and there was a lot that I learned watching that. Definitely some stuff that we need to be doing that we haven't done in the past. So watch that first. But you need to set up an account. You fund it. I think this is particularly important if you're married and you say, okay, I'm going to try this, honey. Do I have your blessing to put whatever? It's going to cost me $500 a pig. I want to raise 6 pigs. I got to buy some equipment. So I'm going to put $5,000 into here. But that's it. Unless there's like a dire emergency and I need to maybe add 10% to that. And then you make that business start to cash flow from that initial seed money. If you get a year or two down the line and your business is going well and you need to expand, and you've got the marketing, the customer base, the demand to justify the expansion, then I'm okay using a line of credit, for your farm to expand that operation. I'm totally okay with that. But like, you've got to be super disciplined. It is so easy in farming. I talk about this point specifically in the in-person workshops that I've done and in the online course. Like, there was one year, a lot of our bulk stuff goes in the fall. Like, most of our cattle go in the fall. We always have half of our bulk pigs go in the fall. Our turkeys go in November. There was one year, it was either a 21 or 23 day period. We had over 25% of our cash flow for the year come in call it 3 weeks. And it would be very, very easy to go out and spend money in an irresponsible way because you felt like you had money to blow. So with farming, it comes and goes in large chunks. So you've got to be very disciplined. But I think early on, you set a budget, you fund that with cash, and you build it from there. And then a couple years down the line, if you want to use some debt to expand it, I think that's okay if you're a disciplined person. And everybody's very different when it comes to credit.